All right, we're back again. Oh man, with the part four of the series of ignoring red flags with yours truly. Dr. Sabrina, what's going on with you?
Nothing much. Just ready for this
Are you
podcast. I'm good and you.
okay? Okay, okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So we we are we are talking about uh traumas,
Mm-hmm.
trauma triggers transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot can really go into that. Let me say it again for the people who sit in the back of the room that can't hear me. Traumas, triggers, transformation. How about that? So we're gonna so we're gonna start with the triggers. What are the triggers? What triggers a person, and how do you react to triggers, or do you not react to triggers? So, let's get into the triggers. You know, uh, the triggers of family members, the triggers of church folk. The triggers of when you're in the streets, the triggers when you on the education side. Like, what triggers a person?
Well, there could be many things that trigger a person, first and foremost, but basically, a trigger is like from emotional response from something that you've experienced, like from a trauma. And so, a lot of people, that's why I put traumas and triggers in the same thing, because a lot of triggers are from traumatic experiences that somebody may have experienced, and not always in childhood. Sometimes it's because of what they've experienced in the present. Somebody might have experienced something in a relationship, an abusive relationship, or just a relationship where they simply did not feel important, or felt like they was bringing more into the relationship than the other person, or wasn't heard, or wasn't loved, or wasn't acknowledged. Sometimes those are triggers too. And it can stem off from childhood, from people experience abandonment, control, just being excluded, things like that. So that can cause a lot of triggers. But basically, it's an emotional
Wait, hold,
response.
hold up, hold up. I was cold. Okay, Dr. Wisdom, listen, man. You you just was naming them, spitting them out. So we're gonna settle for a minute, and
Okay.
we're gonna talk about two things that you said: the triggers that come from abandonment, and we're gonna talk about the triggers that come from not registering with one's thought process, and they feel misunderstood mentally and emotionally. So abandonment first,
Okay.
and the triggers from being misunderstood mentally and emotionally. So I just want you to break those cycles down, and break them down in layman terms so the people in the back can understand too.
Well, basically, a trigger as far as abandonment, if, like, say, for instance, they grew up without a father in the home, or their mother left at a certain young age. Abandonment also occurs when a person feels like they're not important, that the parents do not take time with them, or somebody else in their life does not take time with them. They feel like they've been left at a certain point of their life and they have nobody to rely on. And they go through different experiences based on what they feel like it's being alone. So that happens with the abandonment. Hmm.
Okay, okay. So um now that abandonment, it can be really damaging emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And let's talk about the triggers from that abandonment that damage people emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Can we jump into that for a moment, please?
Absolutely. So, you know that normally when you're dealing with transformation and when you're dealing with triggers and traumatic experiences, a lot of times that's tied into like a PTSD, because a lot of people have experienced different types of anxieties from the different types of triggers, depending on what it is. And there's a lot of symptoms. Sometimes we can be apprehensive to connecting with new relationships. Sometimes we can get to a place where we connecting too soon to relationships, and then we're clingy. We hold on to it because we're afraid that somebody's going to leave us if we don't do this, or if we're not that, if our personality isn't this, or if we don't feel like that. So, sometimes that's where abandonment comes in, and the triggers from that is somebody trying to hold on to something that they feel like they're going to lose. I find a lot of that in abandonment.
Hmm. Wow. So, welcome to the show, Celebrity Publicist, Miss Nicole Jordan. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, Nicole.
So, Dr. Boynes now. Yeah, see, she tuned in with us. So now, when it comes to that abandonment and those triggers, um, let's talk about the trauma from abandonment. And there is a lot of trauma from abandonment. And so, how do people deal with the trauma, and do they ever overcome the trauma?
Well, you can overcome the trauma because all you have to do is realize, first of all, what the trauma is. You need to be aware. We talk about awareness all the time. Hey, Kenneth Brown. I see Kenneth Brown on there. You got him on there. But we talk about trauma all the time. And it's basically an emotional response to an experience that was traumatic. Okay, so we want to first define what that is for everybody. How we deal with traumatic experiences is not always great. Sometimes we tend to relive situations in our mind and over again. And that's actually a big thing with
Mm,
traumatic experiences sometimes. And that's why traumatic experiences and triggers go hand in hand, because it can trigger a response to make us react off of that trauma, if that makes sense. And so what we'll
mhm.
continue to do is relive
Okay,
thought
okay. So,
process in our heads of something that has happened to us in the past.
hmm, okay. So, we do have some guests on in the comment section, and so, um, Miss Nicole Jordan said, "What started your journey?" And so, I'm thinking that since I've been with you this the fourth week I'm with you, and to get King Jacob in your repertoire for 4 weeks, then that means that you had an intellectual thought process that I thought that need to be shared with the world. So with that being said, so what started your journey on breaking down barriers and cycles of depression, of anxiety, of trauma, of triggers, of transformation, of helping people be enlightened about the spiritual things that can help them. And so what gave you that resilience to really step out there and really help people on your journey? You know what I mean?
Well, the thing that should, I believe, give everybody um, a want or a desire to help other people is bringing them out of something or helping them prevent something that you have been through in the past. Because let's be real, no traumatic experience is good and feels good. So I've been through some things myself. And my thing is, if I can help somebody come up out of that space, because we can remain in that space for a very long time. And it can be a point where we don't know how to get out. It's a lot of people that don't know how to get out. It's a lot of people who's just existing. It's a lot of people who just feel like, okay, transformation or, trauma and triggers. Yeah, we know that. but they don't even know that they need to get out of a certain thing. It's a cycle sometimes that we live in day by day, and we don't even know that the things that we're going through our lives and in our lives right now is a product of our traumas and triggers. And how we handle other people and how we handle different things and situations successfully or unsuccessfully is because of what we went through in our lives, whether it be good or bad.
Okay. So, Mr. Kendall Brown, what's up, my brother? He says, how did this transformation help you personally?
That's a good question. And I like when somebody asks me about transformation questions. Well, basically, how it helped me, and I love that because I can normally only speak for me, is what I always say, because I feel like transparency is the best to helping other people. But basically, how it helped me is because I had to first see that I was being triggered. And how I knew that is because I can feel my triggers. I can feel when I'm being triggered. I can feel that I'm angry or irritable, or that I cling to somebody or cling to the wrong people. I can feel that I wanted to be accepted, or I wanted them to view me as something special because I wanted to be viewed as something special. So I put a lot of stipulations on other people that really should have been my own. And so how it helped me is because once when I seen that, I realized the only person who can make me happy is me. The only person who can actually bring me to a different place in my life to help me in that growth would be me. So that's how I helped my transformation. I had to first be aware that I needed transformation. I had to change my mind and transform my mind in order to be according to where I wanted to go. And then I had to move in the direction that I wanted to go in for my success. Everything that is connected to my success, I had to move in that direction and only impart things into my life that was conducive to that success of where I wanted to go.
Okay. Well put. And you definitely you definitely broke it down so we can understand, so it's understood, and now we can stand on top of that thing. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, we're going to jump over into, you know, what people don't want to talk about. Are the What is the triggers? Well, I'm going to say this. What is the trauma that exclude to the triggers, but you can come out the transformation? How do we tie that in with our church community and our church family?
Mm, well, speaking from personal experience, somebody who have been in a lot of traumatic experiences with the church, I think the reality is here's the first thing I had to realize, and this would help me throughout my entire life with dealing with church folks, as we like to say. Being aware that we should not put them on pedestals because they are human too. That's the biggest thing I think that we have a problem with is bringing them in a place where we worship them the same as gods. They are not gods. Even if they're demigods, they're not full God. They are not God. They are not the Alpha and the Omega. They are not the beginning. They're the end. It do not begin with them or end with them. And we put people on pedestals as man, as if they should and shouldn't be doing things. But the reality is because they are man, we are flawed. We make mistakes too. Everybody make mistakes. And I'm not trying to be funny. Even the people that are judging the church, they fail to me to realize their mistakes too. We make some very harsh mistakes. And I feel that once when we realize that we are all flawed, we would not put so much pressure on the person teaching us. Now, I'm not saying not hold them accountable for their right or wrong. But what I'm saying is that we have to first look within. Traumatic experiences in the church happen. They have happened to me. But the problem that I had is that I looked at them as gods. And that's why they were so traumatic, because I'm like, but you're like a god. You're the pastor. You have title. Title means nothing to God if the thing is he don't have your heart. He wants the heart of every man. He says the heart of kings and queens is in his hands and he do whatever he may, which means that it doesn't matter what you do. He said all sin is unrighteousness, all sin. So that does not exempt the pastor for being human. That does not stop the pastor for if he's sitting up there sleeping with a bunch of women in the church. I hate to say it. I ain't saying it's great or it's good, but he is human. He's a man. And real talk, let's get real all the way down here. He got a penis, he got wants, and he got needs and desires, and he got eyeballs that can see a girl's booty when she got on a tight skirt. So, in saying that, you see things that are desirable. I'm just keeping it real here because I think the problem that we get into when it comes to traumatic in the church, when they be like, Pastor, take all the money. You put a bunch of money in their face and put $1 million and say you got to give 10%. They're going to start thinking about that thing. Should I give 10% to the church? They might have won the lottery and they like, I don't want to give 10% to the church. I want to keep all of it. Or their first mentality is to give to their family or people who have done good for them. They're not thinking, okay, give that to the church. You know what I'm saying? Because the church is speaking against gambling. So it's just that when you talk about traumas and triggers in the church, or we talk about traumas and triggers in the church, it starts with one, us remembering that they are human and they are flawed. So the reality is that that's reality. I mean, if we want to transform, we transform within ourselves. And here's the other thing. Stop looking at other people and look within yourself. Because honestly, we speak all the time how we don't care how people feel. We do if we really want to get down to business. And the reality is it doesn't matter what the church is doing. What matters is how we handle it and what we're doing, what decisions we're making, and the moves we're making in order for our success. And whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, sexually, whatever, that is on us, not on the church.
Okay, then. That's what I'm talking about right there. Okay, then. So the next question from celebrity publicist Nicole Jordan, she says, was there any uncomfortability while transforming?
Okay, Nicole hitting with the heavy hitters and Mr. Kenneth Brown. They hit some heavy hitters today. So yeah, okay, so here's the thing. I was so uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable because the first thing is you have to be comfortable with yourself. And what I want people to realize, even in this conversation tonight, everything have to deal with how yourself feels. You know, it's always uncomfortable if you're not used to changing, especially if you have to get used to the idea of changing for yourself and not other people, where especially in the church, we've been kind of trained as far as changing according to people. So yes, while I was transforming, it is very uncomfortable. There are uncomfortable things that I don't want to deal with. That's the biggest thing. Like not being able to want to deal with the hurt, not wanting to be able to deal with what you did, not being able to accept the fact that I allowed this to come into my life. And had I not allowed it, would this ever have happened? Would they have ever been able to do what they did if I didn't allow it? But even more so, what is the part I played in it? Was I too passive? Was I allowing people into my life that I knew wasn't right? I felt wasn't right, but I just want to function according to love. Because God is love and love is love. And I should love. But that don't mean be made a fool of. That don't mean let people into your life who are supposed to be just for a reason or a season and make them a lifetime partner in your business or make them a lifetime partner for life in your marriage or marry them or in a relationship. We have to understand what part we play in this too. And I believe that when we understand what part we play, the transformation, of course, is going to be uncomfortable, but it gets less uncomfortable as you go along and realize who you are in your mind and what you're supposed to do with your walk.
All right, then. Key thing you said, what you're supposed to do with your walk, your purpose. Yes, you're absolutely right. And so Mr. Brown says, people forget the human sides of divine appointments.
Well,
So,
there are all sorts of things, divine appointments, divine connections, and I think we feel different about that, but we also have to know, like Brother Kenneth said, yeah, we can't forget that, but we also can't look beyond what is and what isn't. So we got to be able to, some more seasoned saints and Christians understand how to identify the connections that are right and divine. but not everybody knows how to identify what is divine versus what heavy emotions feel. Because before you get to a certain place in God and in maturity in the spiritual realm, regardless if your ministry is deliverance, finance, health, healing, whatever your church or your ministry is, we have to get to the point that we recognize what divine connections is. Some things might seem divine, but we feel so excited about it. We used to do a retreat every year, a singles and married retreat. And people would come every year and be so excited at the end. We'd get rejuvenated and renewed, and we're so happy, and everything is great. And then we go home, and it's like, we hate you. So real talk, because in certain atmospheres, it builds us up, but it's the maintenance that really causes you to understand how to handle what God has given you in those periods, and to understand how to recognize when it's a godly connection. But I love that. I
Okay.
love that statement.
Okay. So of course we know the flesh get weak constantly. You know what I mean? So being able to fight off those desires and keep them off, of course we going to have things that we go through that instantly you need to really pray about it, because if you let it linger on your mind, it ain't gonna end up good for you. So we're talking about transformation here. So when you understand that you have a, what we say, a new spirit, a new life, the Holy Ghost have grabbed you and made you this new being, while you're walking through the journey of life. What is the transformation when you're leaving the old relationships and walking with a better purpose to benefit you, to benefit God's purpose for you, and to benefit how you inspire others on your daily journey? So, what's the transformation of leaving that past, that toxic way, that way that has nothing but negativity? And these are people that we may have been dealing with for 20, 25 years, and people that we're used to having around. So when you're transforming and you're getting what we call a new, you know what I mean? It's a new everything. You're not the same person. You don't look at life the same. You don't look at your spirit actually the same. You just don't look at society the same, and you don't look at how you're going to move the same. So when you're transforming from that one plateau to a better, a bigger, and a newer journey, what did that transformation feel like, and how do you really get over the hump?
Okay. Well, true transformation, first of all, I always like to give this analogy. You have a table, right? You have a table, and it's a wooden table, and you got four legs, and you got the table. Okay. The table is a table. You flip it upside down, and it's what? Just changed. The position just changed. But if you take that whole entire table, start carving it up, and create a rocking chair, it would never be the same again. It takes on a whole different shape and a whole different look. And that's what transformation, true transformation is. When we've truly transformed, there is no hump to get over. The process of transformation is where the hump is. So in the
Okay.
process of transformation, we are going to be aware. We are making ourselves aware of our emotions, of our ups and downs, of what part we played in it, as well as other people. We don't blame anybody else for the things that we allow, but we put them in the position that they need to be in, instead of placing them in a position we felt in the beginning they should be in. So now that's where the transformation happens. Complete awareness and say, hey, I know I need a change. And this is the proper change for me. Now, you can still stay the same, and I still love you just the same. See, that's true transformation. But I just can no longer reside with you. It's okay.
Mm.
Continue to be how you are, because I'm not trying to control you. The problem is we try to control people, so we stay in relationships, hoping and wishing and trying to control the change. They're not going to, because that is who they are. So real transformation is, I am completely different. Have you ever seen somebody that they look completely different? Their countenance changed. I'm not saying that, you see this hair, and of course I change my wig every week. So of course I look different. But if I'm the same person, but I look different with my countenance, my face changes, my spirit changes. You see there's a different light about me. You see that my shine is different. That's that transformation. And you're like, Sabrina, I know she's not the same. See, here's the thing. It's not about you self-diagnosing yourself. The real proof is when somebody can look at you and say, oh, I know she changed because I see it. I'm not saying you based yourself off of what people think, but that is actually a truth teller if you have actually changed.
Okay.
So basically that's how the transformation really is. The transformation first starts within you being aware, and secondly, being able to come up outside of what you once knew and to the unknown, and be comfortable with the transformation and change of the unknown. Just being aware that you appreciate the process, and you go and you do the process with grace and with God.
Okay then. Okay then. You punching now. You're punching, and you hit the punching bag dead square in the middle. Now you're punching. So hey, Dr. Sabrina, listen here, man. Can you see the comment that Mr. Cole just wrote on the screen?
I see.
Okay, would you like to chime in on that, please?
Sure. She said, if I'm not mistaken, the Bible says if you have meditated on it, and you might as well have done it. Is that correct? Well, yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. That's the process of interpretation. That's the process of perception. So I was talking to somebody earlier on this week, and we was talking about the process of perception. That is really big when it comes to triggers and trauma and transformation, because the process of how we perceive, it means a lot in how we move. So the process, let me break that down real quick. The process, the reason why that scripture is in place, because if you're gathering in the selection, okay, I select what I want to look at. Then I gather information of what it is that I'm looking at. Then I create an interpretation. Okay. So there's a selection, there's an interpretation, and there's a selection, there's information gathering, and then there's an interpretation. And so at that point, because we do all those things, if it just get in our ear gate, it's going to process through our minds, because that's how our body and our minds work. And then goes into our action. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speak. It's not about just speaking. It's showing you that there's an action in place when it gets into your heart, the processing plant, and it comes out of your mouth or through your actions. Because that is what you allowed in your ears, your eyes. You allowed yourself to take that in, and you're going to have to bring it out some kind of way. So yeah, it is true. The Bible is real. I mean, if he say that if you so a man thinketh, so is he. That's why he says, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. He tell you to do that because the art of attraction, the law of attraction is real. Whatsoever you think, whatsoever you speak, ask, and it shall be given unto you. You have to believe that what you say, else you'll never have it. Which is why triggers and traumas are very important in the transformation.
You better say that, sister. You better say it. Yes. So, brother Kenneth Brown, he has an interesting point, and so I want you to chime in on that if you can see it on the screen.
I can. He says control of one's personal change is narcissistic, isn't it? Well, any kind of control is not necessarily narcissistic. A control spirit is simply that, a control spirit. Actually, it's more in the form of mind manipulation, and control is a form of witchcraft. Because you're trying to control a certain outcome. A narcissist more so have a personality that they care only about themselves. And so control can be in that, but it's not the for all end all. when it comes to narcissistic behavior, is based off of somebody who only wants their way. And so that can actually performs a trigger. It can actually build a trigger because that person only desires for you to succumb to whatever it wants, whatever desires. And when they don't get it, they attack because they want that. When you attack their squeaky clean image, when they try to portray an image, even though they're like, no, I want to get what I want, but I want to portray an image that I want you to have what you want. You know, there are certain things in narcissism that have a lot to do with more so not necessarily control. They want to, everybody wants a certain level of control of their atmosphere, just to be honest, because even if you dealt in triggers and traumas, you don't want to hurt again. So if I've been hurt a lot in certain things and people come into my situation, I might be like, no, I got to control this so I never have to deal with that again. So they put certain things in place so that they won't be triggered in their new relationships. However, when it comes to a narcissistic experience, they control certain things, but that's not their for all end all. A narcissist basically functions in getting their way, only their way, and anybody that stands in the way, they're going to destroy them.
All right. You heard it first. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we get back, narcissistic behavior that masters the art of manipulation. When we get back with Dr. Barnes, yours truly, King Jacob, traumas, triggers, transformation. Stay tuned for more important messages. All right, we're back at it again. Yours truly, King Jacob, with Dr. Sabrina with some Barnes.
Can't hear
and
you.
We are. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, so back again with you, boys. Yours truly, King Jacob, with Dr. Sabrina Wisdom Barnes. So we're talking about traumas, triggers, and transformation. But we're going to get into a more exclusive topic that has to deal with all those above. So the narcissistic behavior that masters the art of manipulation. And so if I can be intrigued by a discussion with Dr. Barnes and for her to really break this down and how this registers with what we're talking about with the trauma, the triggers, and the transformation. If you can break that down for us, if you could just give us a little bit of your theory on it, give us the wisdom theory. You know what I mean?
Well, with narcissists, the biggest thing that they do is have an inflated, grandiose sense of self-worth with their ideas of what they feel they want in life. They're very self-centered, arrogant thinking, and their behaviors flow accordingly. I think that they have, and I've dealt with a couple of narcissists, they have an inflated sense of self-worth. They have excessive need to be acknowledged and admired. They're superficial. They have a lack of empathy. See, we're very empathetic, and they tend to gravitate to those that they can triangulate with, meaning that they would get everybody else against each other so that you won't talk to each other, so you won't be able to talk about what they're doing and what they're not doing, and that's how they get controlling. Um, just to be transparent and honest with the triggers per se, um, I have been triggered by a narcissist. So let me speak on personal experience with
Mm-hmm.
a family member, actually. And so, what happens with the narcissist, the trigger is I developed at one point a sense of emotional PTSD. And a lot of people, when it comes to trauma and triggers, they do suffer from emotional PTSD or PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome. And that's pretty much when there's a lot of things that happen with narcissists or different people of the like, who have over sense of self-worth. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about yourself. I teach that
Mm-hmm.
all the time. However, when you get to a point where you down others or you look at others as to be something to step on top of to get to where you need to go, that's where the problem begins for me. And the person that I dealt with that was a narcissist, all they did was do certain things to me and then try to blame me for why they was doing what they was doing, instead of accepting responsibility for who they were and what they was actually doing. The fact that they got themselves at the point that they're in, but they only look at, well, they didn't do this for me, and it's about me and me and I. And if you're not careful as a person who loves and loves hard, you'll fall right into the trap of a narcissist by believing whatever they feel about you is real in your world as well as theirs. And it's really not really real in their world. It's just a way to manipulate the outcome all the time so that they can get what they want. Because ultimately, that's what a narcissist wants to do, is get what they want, get what they need. And in the grand scheme of things, it's about what they desire and only what they desire.
All right. In a nutshell. Whew. So, uh, I will tell you to stay away from those type of people. Those type of people mean you no good. They mean themselves no good. They mean society no good. So we're going to get into Miss Nicole's Jordan comment. It's up there on the screen, and so I'm pretty sure you have some choice words, selective words, that you can share with her about what she put on the comment section.
I so love this. I always love when somebody engage with us. Nicole, she says, they say that I'm too nice. Girl, me too. Because they say God is love. So I try to be loving and understanding. Can we just unpack that for a second? Okay, King
Go
David.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Um,
ahead.
the reality is that I'm not saying that we're too nice. I'm saying we're too nice to the wrong people.
Hmm. Preach,
I was
sister.
told that by somebody who's dear in my life. And they helped me open my eyes to the fact that no, Sabrina, it's not that you're too nice, because we say that a lot. I'm too nice. I'm just too nice. I feel like I'm too nice. And in the frustration of things, we do feel like we're too nice because we like them ninjas. I'm doing that for TV purposes. But them ninjas, you know, they just take advantage. I'm sick of it. And we do. We get tired because we're sweet people and we have feelings too. We're human. We're not robots. So they've said I was too nice too. But the reality is that there's nothing wrong with being loving and nice and who you are. That's actually a power that you don't really understand you have. Because being nice when the world is so hateful and loving is what people really need in this day and age. So never look at the too nice aspect. You are nice because you are loving. You're able to see things that nobody else can see. And you're able to talk and speak into people's spirits in a world where people have nothing but hatred and negativity to say. So never doubt that, love, honey. That's a blessing from God. But you said, I feel like that's my change. It is. It's your change. It's your blessing. It is your gift. Own it. Just remember who you're being nice and sweet to, because we got to understand and we got to own that too. You know, the people we bring in our lives, when we see what they are, but we want to see the greatness in them, we got to be very careful in that. We can see the grateful in you, but until you're at a place where I see you're functioning and the transformation of who you are instead of remaining in who you are because you feel comfortable, then I'm going to deal with you. Then I'm going to mess with you. You said the old me. So how do I adjust again? Because the being passive have caused me to be very introverted outside of business. I almost can't stand being around a certain type of human. Seriously, I feel like I've worked hard to get here. Here's the thing, Nicole. Let's be very blunt. It's nothing wrong with being introverted, and sometimes the experiences in our life will cause us to be where we need to be. It's not, who's to say that you're not meant to be introverted? Who's to say because of where God is taking you, you need to take a more introverted stance? Because you have a lot of people out there that's trying to kill the prophets. And what I mean by that is that the prophets have to be protected. Your gift have to be protected. Who you are have to be protected. Understand that when you go to different heights and higher levels, you cannot take everybody with you. And you have to be even more cautious when you get to higher levels of those people that's trying to come in and take what you have, take your ideas. They're trying to suck you dry for your happiness because they don't really see you there. Remember, other people see your potential too. That does not mean that's a bad reflection on you. That's a bad reflection on them. Keep that in them. Being introverted is not a bad thing. Sometimes we can be extroverted when we go out, and when we come back in, it's meant for us to take care of ourselves because we need to rebuild. When you give out a lot, you got to rebuild equally. Remember that. So it's okay if you can't be around certain humans and certain people because it's not meant in this day, in this hour, in this time for you to be around those people. God might be separating you because he needs you to hear. He needs you to follow his direction. He needs you to see. And he knows with our heart that we give so much that we're not able to separate our hearts from the mission at hand. So he will move people or make people do things to say, okay, stay on task because I need you to go here. It's time to go to the next level, Nicole. It's time to do new things. It's time to seek different counsel. It's time to just see me. It's time to only hear me so you can hear the steps that I have ordered for you. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be introverted. Sometimes it's meant for where God is taking you. Understand that every process, everywhere he's taking you is meant. So enjoy the process, respect the process, be in the process, live in the process.
All right. Now that's what I'm talking about. You know what you just did? You just had a whole conversation that people used to have with their grandma, sitting on the side of grandma's bed while she got that piece of peppermint in her mouth. And she said, baby, you hear me? Are you listening? Are you listening, baby? So that's what I'm talking about. Self-love, self-growth, self-confidence, bringing that awareness back where we can share and we can build as one. That is what is needed in society. So let's go on to Brother Kenneth Brown, comment.
Triangulation is a key element for control. Oh, yes, it is. I mean, that's what people do. Triangulation has to happen in order for them to shut everybody out. I don't like you. You don't like them. They don't like that. This person had me actually having people come to my house fighting me. Literally. I had like 3 different people fight me, 2 people in my house with guns while I got 4 other kids. And they even turned against me and tried to fight me. And I'm like, you the one starting all this mess. But people do not care when they triangulate. All they want to do is their main goal. Their main goal is to make sure that they get what they want. And that is definitely traumatic. And that will definitely trigger. So it makes you not want to hang around with people. It makes you want to isolate. Triggers like because of trauma make you want to isolate yourself. I don't want to deal with this no more. I don't want to deal with people like that. I'm sick of people. I'm tired of people. I'm tired of dealing with their issues. I'm tired of dealing with the church. I'm tired because I know I was. That's why I don't even really like too much to go into the church anymore because I'm like, you know what? I was tired of them. But you know what? I'm more tired of myself than I'm tired of the church. And what do I mean by that? I allowed that. All them years, the common denominator was me allowing everything, even allowing people to triangulate. I had more conversations than I like to have. And that is the key element for control, but it's the key element to get what you want. Not even just to control people. Triangulation is really made for a control factor, but it's also made to get everybody away so they don't know what you're really doing, so you can do what you want to do. That's what triangulation is for. It's less of control and more of getting done the goal that they have in mind for themselves to get everything they want for each individual person. Because if everybody hating each other or nobody talks to each other, that means nobody's discussing you and they're not able to see exactly what niggotry foolishness you're really into.
All right then. All right then. Moving right along, Doc. Moving right along. Back at you with Miss Nicole Jordan again.
She said, yes, I feel like I have to plug back up to the source. Absolutely. And there are times we feel like that because we can get so engaged and involved in everyday life. And that's what, if you will, if I get deep for a moment, that's what the devil wants you to do. He wants you to unplug from the real source and plug into false sources that only provides temporary power. Okay, I know I'm getting a little deep real quick, but I feel my help coming along just real quick.
Go do your thing. Do your thing. Do your thing.
Because we have a habit of tapping into temporary power sources, and we're unplugged from the real source because we say, "Oh, well, God sent me here," but we're unplugged from God and tap into somebody else because we want to help them. But here's the thing that I offer to everybody, and not just Sister Nicole, is what are we really doing this stuff for? What are we really connecting in with the people for? What is the real purpose that this person provides for where God is actually taking me? And the only way to do that is to tap in, like you said, Miss Nicole, back to the power source, the ultimate power source, the only source that keeps on giving power and never runs out. And he will lead us into the right way to know exactly where to go. He will lead us even not just to the right place, but the right emotions, the right healing, the right mental position that we need to be in. He will take us in places and build us up and put us in the place of high man, high professionality. It's just so many things that God will do for us if we tap into him. But that will exclude everybody else, and the devil knows that. So he puts us in positions where we're familiar, because we gravitate to the familiar a lot quicker because that's what we feel comfortable with. Our comfortability is in the familiar. But once when you step out into the familiar and step out, as he said, launch into the deep, there's a whole nother level into the deep that's so uncomfortable. As we talked about uncomfortability, it's uncomfortable to step out into the water, Peter. It's uncomfortable to step out into the water when the waters are muddy or the water and the waves are just going crazy. And we like, oh, but how are we going to walk on water? But Miss Nicole, maybe God is calling you to walk on water. Maybe he wants you to stay focused. Maybe he wants to put blinders on you where you only see straight and see the footsteps of God and say, Nicole, you walk in these steps, not in everybody else's steps, but the steps I'm asking you to walk in. See, he already separated you. He's now making you aware. And now he says, step out into the deep.
So, you know, you said a familiar place, right? So to me, when you're transforming and you're going to the next plateau in your life, you don't need to be in a familiar place. The familiar place is called complacence. The familiar place brings a lot of stagnation in the process that God wants you to have. The stagnation will not let you live out your purpose. So those familiar places, you can throw them all the way in the trash. I don't want familiar. I was in familiar, and familiar didn't elevate me. You know what I mean? So I can't do familiar. You know what I mean? I need to be extra extraordinary. You know what I mean? I need to be to the highest level of elevation where those who can't elevate, I can pull them up. Because that's what God told me to do. You know what I mean? So familiar, I don't want that. So we're gonna go ahead with Brother Brown comment.
Introversion, he said, is a good thing for self awareness. See, you need to tell him that I got a high school diploma with a sad view of doctorism. So all these big words he using. so so introversion is a good thing for self-awareness. What I believe he's saying is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kenneth, is going into yourself, getting
Mhm.
into your quiet place is a good thing for self-awareness. First, you got to be still, be calm, and
Mhm.
be quiet. A lot
Right.
of times I have to go into my quiet place because when I'm triggered, meaning when things that happen in my life is because it's a spiral of thinking. You know, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that. And then you start reliving stuff. People did this and that person did that. And a long time ago they did that too. And why everybody doing this to me? So you get to thinking instead of being quiet. Get into your quiet place and saying, now I need to just look at me. I love when he says that getting into basically a quiet place, introversion, going into yourself instead of being around a lot of people. Being around a lot of people when you're trying to be self-aware is a distraction because they're doing other things based on where they feel they should go instead of you doing things based upon where you should go and God is calling you. And so we do need to get a lot of times in our quiet place in order to one, hear from God, and two, be able
Yes.
to open our minds up. It's in the quiet place where we're able to open our minds up and see who we are. It's in the quiet places where we're able to accept that we need to open ourselves up and we need to not look at what anybody else thinks or feels about us, but what we feel about us. What did we allow? How did we allow it? How to go about it next time? And what are we going to do moving forward in that? So
Mm.
that's good.
True. True indeed. And then I tell people. People used to be like, man, he an introvert. He weird. I used to tell him, man, homie ain't weird, man. Homie a genius. Homie is a genius. Homie is the type of person that's so analytical. You know, he break down so many barriers about life that you could never even wrap your mind around. Yeah, he an introvert. He only select with I got a homeboy. Man, we've been homeboys since we 4 or 5 years old, and he only dealt with 4 people his whole life. Besides until he found his wife, but he got 4 friends that he had for his whole life. He don't want to meet new friends, never did. He'd be like, nah, Jay, that's your homeboy. I don't know him. I don't want to know him. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's like, I don't want nobody to infiltrate in my thought process. No. So as I grow older, I remember that statement. I'll be like, man, he was on some way different stuff when we were 13, 14 years old. But he was absolutely right. You know what I mean? So this is we about out of time. So my last statement is, how did your emotional gifts help your transformation?
My emotional gifts.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily have or would attribute it to emotional gifts. I would attribute it to just me being able to have the willingness to want
Well,
yeah, the willingness to want a change. I think that's what helped me is the willingness to want me to change, not so much of a gift, because honestly, in dealing with everything I had to, just being transparent, I let my gifts flow to the wayside
hmm so when
because
I
I was
say
so.
emotional, I mean to cut y'all off, but when I say emotional gifts, when you are kind to people, and when
Okay.
you are charismatic to people, and when you uplift people, and when you greet people with that gesture that's called a warm smile, that's an emotional gift.
Okay.
We're living in a society where people don't possess those gifts. Those gifts. We're living in a society where people heart is colder than South Dakota. You know what I mean? and we're living in a society where people are self-centered. Their their ego is so big, and their ego is not big off something they're done. Their ego is big off somebody they're connected with. You didn't even do it, bro. You're connected with this person, so they brought you along. So why should your ego be big? You should be more grateful and showing more gratitude than anything. Humble yourself, young fella. You know what I mean? So when I say those emotional gifts, yes, sister, there is such things as emotional gifts.
I see. Okay, well, I understand. Everybody got different meanings and stuff. So, in regards to
Mhm.
that, um, how my emotional gifts did, I still don't think that my emotional, if anything, my emotional gifts to me got me in trouble. Let me be transparent about that.
Okay.
My kind smile and my niceness and all that triggered so many things with me, and a lot of stuff. And man, I can't even get into all that. But I used to have guys smack your booty, girl, your booty fat girl. Like I got all sorts of stuff, and just because I smile, they be like, "Yeah, she want me. Yeah, look at that booty, look at them big titties." I mean, just being real for all the viewers out there to know what I'm talking about.
You
Um,
know what? You
I'm
know
just
what?
saying, like I mean, I could make a song about it. Smack your booty, girl. Smack your booty. But I'm just saying,
uh,
like when it comes to
uh,
those gifts, I don't think they helped me change. If anything, well, it did help me change in a way that I don't want to deal with that again. Now people
so
approach me different, you
so
know.
what if we look at it like this, Dr. Bones? Like in the transformation, say that you didn't take those gifts with you and when you was transforming. You would have been a whole different type of person. So with you taking those gifts with you, God made you what we call a new. So
Absolutely.
so
Transformation.
right, a new. So
I still
with
got the
you,
big booty though. That's the problem. See, I get what you're saying, King, but the booty don't go nowhere. All I'm saying is, all I'm saying is, in the transformation of who I am, what I learned is I learned to accept me.
uh
That's the biggest out of transformation is accepting you for who you are,
hmm
no matter how other people look at you. The second thing is to keep smiling. I am a smiler. I am a happy person. And I like
right,
to smile, and I don't like anybody really taking me out of that. I'm not saying sometimes I don't feel because I'm not a robot. But what I do with that in regards to my traumas and triggers, I learn how to smile through sometimes my thought processes. I learn how to be aware of my thought processes and to incorporate who I am now, who I want to be in the near future, and put that in the place of the negativity that's trying to infiltrate my thought process and my spiritual and my natural and emotional gifts.
right. Okay, well, great. So we've had a wonderful 4-part series, man. We
Likewise.
broke, man, we broke down boundaries, accountability. We broke down church folks, Christians, and we broke down sweet ministers. We broke down self-love, self-confidence, growth. Tonight we broke down traumas, triggers, and transformations, and we even talked about the narcissistic behavior that masters the art of manipulation. So we have a great 4-part series, and just want to give a big shout out to Miss Nicole Joy, Mr. Kenneth Brown, for not just tuning in, but
Yeah,
putting some content in that comment box, so
good stuff.
they can add more flavor to the show as well. So this is a wrap. We're gonna call it Reynolds, and we're gonna just keep it moving. So, Doctor, Sabrina Wisdom Barnes, we appreciate you coming through the chatterbox. And if you want to close out and say something, you have the floor now.
That's awesome. Well, I didn't do it in the beginning, so thank you so much, King Jacob, for having me today. And it's always an honor. when somebody see the beauty or the gifts in you. So I never take that for granted, no matter what I have under my belt as a title.
Mm-hmm.
I am also looking at the fact, for those of you out there, make sure that you understand who you are. You learn how to love who you are, and you learn how to take responsibility for what we have allowed, so you can move forward in your future of greatness of what God had for you in the future. And I look forward to hearing more great things that God has in store for you, and the greatness that God is going to propel you into to your new destiny. Love you
All
too.
right. So, Miss Nicole Jordan says, "We love you, Sabrina. I wish you could mentor me." And
Inbox
I
me,
wish.
boo.
Oh, okay. Enough said. Enough said. So, you guys have a great, pleasant night, and stay tuned for more important message. And Dr. Sabrina, you will be on Nicole's podcast, the Winding Down Podcast, Late Night Conversation.
Okay.
And so we will definitely have a series with you on there as well. So you take care, be blessed, and always stay encouraged.
God bless.
God bless.